All right, so now that we've talked about Reconstruction and rebuilding the South, we have to talk about this period of history where things were just not right. Segregation and Jim Crow laws. So the freedoms and rights that were promised to African Americans were taken away after the period of Reconstruction, and it took years to win them back. Jim Crow laws had an effect on both African Americans and American Indians. So these laws really impacted anyone who wasn't Caucasian. So there are two terms that you need to know, and they're right here in your interactive notebook in this blue circle: segregation, and discrimination. Segregation is when people are separated, usually based on their race or religion, and discrimination is an unfair difference in the treatment of people. Okay, so segregation means that people would have to use different facilities, different schools, different hospitals, different churches, different shopping marts, everything. Discrimination is when someone is not allowed to do something or is treated poorly because they're different from other people. So during this Reconstruction period that we've already discussed, right after the Civil War, African Americans began to hold power in Virginia. They were able to be in the government. Black and white men could vote and hold office. All these things happened after the Civil War during Reconstruction. However, shortly thereafter, Jim Crow laws were passed by the southern states, and that established the separation of races and segregation, and that reinforced prejudices that were held by whites. So the Jim Crow laws forced unfair poll taxes and voting taxes that kept people who were poor from voting, and also they had difficulty holding public office. They had to take tests in order to be able to vote. They were forced to use separate, poor quality facilities, water fountains, restrooms, restaurants, hospitals, and they also forced African Americans and Caucasian Americans to attend separate schools. And typically the schools for Caucasian Americans were much nicer than the ones for African Americans. So this segregation and discrimination with the rights that were taken away from African Americans, they had an impact on housing, on employment, on healthcare, on politics, and on education. In my opinion, this is one of the darkest times in Virginia and American history.